Hi guys, it's Dr. Freeman and Norton here today. We're working from home, so we are doing our video together. He might run away at some point or woof at something. I apologize, but that's the nature of my crazy life right now. So hopefully this week will be a short video. I just wanted to update you first on a few things. Number one, I updated the final design phase and opened that for April 14th, which is coming up. So you will have access to everything in the final design phase those weeks 6 and 7 of the class starting on April 14th. Everything will be open. Please let me know if it's not. Number two, you should have back by now some feedback and a grade for the first draft of the teaching philosophy. I have put the feedback in your discussions from last week, and I gave you a completion grade for having turned that in. Remember that the drafts, you just get points for turning it on time, but I have you do that so that you are editing and crafting your teaching philosophy through the various phases. And keep in mind that your next draft, that narrative of the teaching philosophy, is going to be due on Sunday, which is April 16th. So you might want to plan ahead a little bit this week considering it's Easter. The next thing to keep in mind is that I just got my first round of syllabi. I know that everybody just turned those in, and I will be reviewing those as quickly as possible and getting you some feedback. And that syllabus will be due at the end of the final design phase, and actually in week 8. So it's one of the last things to be due. I'll be getting you feedback as soon as possible. This week you had a discussion on the silent student, and I wanted to note that actually Palmer refers to the silent student in the chapters, specifically chapter 3, pages 81 to 82 in my copy. And so there are a few paragraphs from Palmer that actually nicely fit into that conversation of the silent student. So you might want to refer to that as well as the other materials that are up on D2L. Along with that, I've asked you to talk about creating a space that is going to be conducive to really good teaching. And so in chapters 3 and 4, Palmer talks about how teaching is to create a space in which a community of truth is practiced. And so I ask you to think about a classroom space, either in the context of when you were a student, or alternately if you've been an instructor when you were a teacher, that essentially just worked, that you found engaging. And I ask you to reflect on how it captured at least one of Palmer's paradoxes. And if you read the chapters, you should be able to kind of know what those paradoxes are. To answer that question myself, I wanted to just talk about an experience I had as a college senior. One of the most, I think, critical courses that a mass comm student can take is going to be media law. And I had a fabulous instructor in a pretty big course. It had to be like 100 people. It was one of those large lecture rooms with kind of stadium seating. And every Friday, we would have discussion day. So Monday, Wednesday was pure lecture and got really meticulous notes, but every Friday was discussion day about some topic that had to do with media law and media ethics, so on and so forth. When I was a college senior, I believe, was when Hurricane Katrina happened. And one of the discussion Fridays happened to fall around right after the hurricane passed through New Orleans. And so my instructor shifted the course discussion to talk about the media coverage surrounding Hurricane Katrina. And I remember that, number one, because we had been having really good discussions all semester long. The teacher really facilitated a good discussion atmosphere. He didn't make anybody feel dumb for their responses, but he really encouraged people to participate through, I think we had required responses to get credit. But it was also just an encouraging environment. And so the students in the aftermath of Katrina really took to this discussion. And talking about a paradox, I remember on one hand, there was this openness, this sense of comfort and safety in that particular classroom, that everyone felt pretty comfortable talking about their feelings. And there were a lot of layers of complexity regarding the issue of Hurricane Katrina, race dynamics, and specifically media coverage. And so lots of complexity, but it was a really safe space. And so there was this paradox of a really tough, really kind of tense subject matter that kept everyone on their toes, but on the other hand, having a really safe space for people to feel comfortable talking and expressing their beliefs. And I think that that is essentially one of the ways that Palmer is getting at, creating a space for students where they're alert enough, right, to feel engaged, but also safe enough to not feel uncomfortable speaking up. And so it was this really lively discussion. I remember it being really wonderful and really beneficial. It's been several years now, and that's one of the moments of being a college student, being engaged in real academic discussions that stuck with me from my undergrad. Okay, so finally today, I want to end on our teaching wisdom of the week. And today's teaching wisdom comes from Dr. Clyde Bentley. Dr. Bentley is an associate professor in the Missouri School of Journalism. He was actually one of my professors when I was a student there for my PhD, and really great teacher who I worked with and shadowed when I was learning to teach research methods. And so Dr. Bentley gives some really great advice. It's pretty extensive, so I'm going to read it. Bear with me, because I think it's great. So he says that he believes that students, as we've talked about, learn in several different ways, which means that a single teaching method almost always loses someone. According to Dr. Bentley, it's pretty common to address the difference between audio learners and visual learners by PowerPoints and other presentations along with their lectures. However, he thinks that it's important to post those slides to things like D2L or Blackboard so that the visual learners can use them as study guides. And I do that actually. I model my kind of teaching method in that way after Dr. Bentley. He says, it works even better if you post the slides in advance of the lecture. I show students how to use the notes view of the PowerPoint to call up the presentation on a laptop or tablet during class, and to take their notes directly onto each slide. This works especially well for international students or others who have language challenges. Now he goes on to give some other really neat advice. There's also considerable variance in how students directly interact with the instructor or the rest of the class. Too often, Dr. Bentley believes this is gender-based. There is always someone in the class, very often a guy, who is overly eager to answer questions or to talk over the top of others during discussion. He goes on to say that, on the other hand, there usually is someone who never says a word during the entire class. Too often, this is a woman. We have a very unfair cultural tradition of encouraging women to be quiet and men to be loud. He says that he addresses this by giving a written element to his classroom discussions. He says, while I give the Socratic method give and take of in-class discussions, I also use our class management software, formerly Blackboard, now Canvas, D2L in our case, to give the quiet a chance to participate. Each week, I post a discussion board. They usually have until Saturday afternoon to post. Then by Sunday night, they must post a comment on what one or more of the classmates has submitted. He says, over time, I've found that my quietest students are often my most articulate discussion board participants. I also allow international students to dive in with their unique perspectives by doing this. They seldom can translate fast enough to take part in the oral discussions, but they enjoy the written discussion components, he says. He says, I've had many students tell me that these weekly online discussions were keys to learning the subject. They allow them to use critical thinking and to examine ideas from multiple perspectives. So I wanted to share that with you. I know it's really lengthy, but I think there are some really great nuggets of wisdom, especially touching on that idea of the silent student that we have been talking about, that we need to give different types of students different ways that we can evaluate them fairly. And I think Dr. Bentley provides a really pragmatic sort of solution to a common problem of students who don't naturally speak up in class because of various reasons. All right, so that's what I've got for you today. I look forward to hearing from you. We're almost halfway through. Really excited to be getting done with the semester. We've been fluctuating in the weather here in Brookings, but it's a little cold now. Looking forward to some warmer days. I hope you have a great week, and please feel free to keep in contact with me, email me, text me if you have any questions or comments. Thanks. Have a wonderful week.